is this is not one that a lot of us won't like, but it's an important truth, and it is don't take everything personally. It's a hard one. As a disabled person throughout most of my life, especially when I wasn't getting during times I wasn't getting around well, I carried a chip on my shoulder because people dismissed me out of hand. And it wasn't right. It's just how life was. I would want to do a job and people would be like, hmm, yeah, I don't think so. People constantly would think that I couldn't do things, and I got a real chip on my shoulder. One of the reasons that I did the 100-mile bike races and tours for a while, 3, 4 years, maybe 5, I don't remember. But I would do these horrible races, and one of them I remember was a 100-mile race in 100-degree temperatures in Wichita Falls, Texas. And it would vary, but most of the time that's about what it was. Nobody thought I was going to do very well in the race because I wasn't getting around well. I didn't have any adaptive equipment, just me jumping on my bike and going. And it really bothered me, but people would just dismiss me, or they would be afraid for me to pass them because they didn't want the handicapped guy passing because they would look bad. So it was it's hard to not get worked up about that, and I had to learn. That is where I learned, because it actually worked out to my advantage. A little story I'll tell you. When I would ride these rides, people knew who I was, and you start getting up there in the upper echelons, and sometimes I could be up in the top 60 or 50 out of maybe thousands that started, and these people would know me and they did not want to be passed by me. And so what I would do, I'd use it as a strategy. They'd see me coming up behind them a ways back, and automatically their heart rate would get up and they'd be like, oh no. And I knew that because it had happened enough. All I had to do was just stay in their sight. I didn't have to gain on them. I didn't have to catch them. Just stay in their sight, stay relaxed, keep riding my pace. And their heart rate would go up, and they'd start pedaling up too fast down up the hills, and they'd start riding harder than they needed to and getting into their danger zone a little bit, and they'd actually get exhausted. And then I could just, at my regular pace, ride right through them. Now, these were good people. This isn't, it's not a slam on them. It's just our human nature sometimes. It happens to us all the time, right? Because we're dealing with a bunch of people from a lot of different perspectives, and everybody's stressed and hurting right now and scared about what's going on in the world. And they have opinions, and they see the media, and they want to talk about it just because they're stressed too. So sometimes they say things that, well, I don't believe that way. I believe something completely different. And it could be somebody that we're close to, and all of a sudden I've heard it from religious people that are friends of mine, and all of a sudden I'll say something and I'll be like, well, that's not very religious. But you can't take that stuff personally. You have to understand that we're all human. We all have things that we stress out about. We all say things that we're feeling at the time. If I sat down and talked to them about it, they would say, yeah, I didn't think about that. There's a different perspective, and we're all just trying to get through the world. But we get worked up about that, and we start taking that personally. Well, I can't believe what that person said, and I can't believe how that person feels about me, and I can't believe I saw this on social media and this on the news. And we take that stuff personally. Who's it hurting? They don't know. 9 times out of 10, they don't know that you've got worked up about something, that you have a different perspective, or that they've hurt you or stressed you out. It's hurting you. So there's too many times in our personal lives where we have to deal with stresses with people and things like that. So those people that aren't close to you or that you see on social media, don't take it personally. We all do that from time to time. We all hurt people when we shouldn't, with our things that we say that we don't think about, or we all do things that that make other people, have a harder time in life, and we don't realize it because we're going through our own lives and we're doing stuff. So it's not something that I'd like to say, here's a magic formula for doing it. You just have to start working on it and understand. For me, somebody I can be close to, and I've got friends all over the spectrum on all sorts of issues, and they all say all sorts of things. And I may think to myself, really? But in reality, they're human. Once again, we all do that. So I let it go because the relationship is is a lot more important than that. And perspectives will change when stresses go down. I've lived through times that were really stressful in the late 60s and early 70s with the Vietnam War and the economy and all sorts of things going crazy. And eventually it mellowed out some, and it will again. So we just have to keep that in mind and not take things personally, because if you can do that during a stressful time and when you have anxiety and stuff, remember, they don't understand a lot of times what you're going through. They don't know. We don't need to tell them. Once again, if they're not close, we don't have to make everything a mountain that we die on. Just okay. Well, they don't know any better. Let it go.